So the live that I'm doing today, I really wanted to do this. It was based on a post that I wrote earlier today and left on Facebook. And I left it purposely because I wanted to talk about this issue. And this issue is the importance of making that first decision. And I know it might sound really, really logical, but there are loads of things that keep us stuck. And it's that first decision to take a step, to move in a certain direction that obviously dictates everything else. And I wanted to talk about that because, not just because of the action or the words, but because of the effect it has on the mind. Taking that step actually has an effect on the mind. It causes the mind to do something. And when you know and understand that, hopefully it will help you to take those first steps and decisions in a different way. Okay, so let me start with what I really wanted to talk about. Who have I got? Who's joined me here? Can I get on? I can't scroll down and see. Oh, I can't get there. So sorry. No, my laptop's frozen. Frozen in place. I can't scroll down. Oh, yes, Sarah and Mary. Thank you for joining. Okay, right. So making that first decision. So what I was writing about earlier today, I want to make it clear that this was definitely not about looking at the situation of people who are in terrible abuse situations. I know them full well. They come to me every day, not just the people that want help, but the people who are in situations where they really can't get help. So I absolutely, completely, and definitely understand that there are people out there who are in abuse situations that cannot make a decision to leave. I'm not saying that they should just be able to decide, oh, this is no good, I'm leaving. I understand all the complex reasons behind why people can't do that or often don't do that, and hopefully they move beyond it, but they're in a space where they just can't do that. So the kind of decisions that I'm talking about are where people are in a situation where maybe they've realized what's going on, or maybe it's not even an abuse situation, and they can make a decision to take a step in a certain direction. Now, the reason this is important is because your mind only has several rules. And when you know what they are, it can really, really help you to get your mind to work with you rather than work against you. And one of the rules of your mind is that your mind reacts to the words and images that you feed it. So if you are faced with a decision about something, this is why this word decide, just decide to start, just decide what you're going to do. Because when you decide, you send a very clear message to your mind about what you want to do next, the direction that you want to go in. Okay, so your mind reacts to the words and images that you tell it. So you're giving it a very clear direction there. But also your mind's other job is to support you in what it thinks you want. So you tell your mind what you want very clearly with the words and images that you use, and your mind will react to those, and then its job is to support you in what you've told it you want through the words and images. And once you do that, you set up, can you see how you would set up a chain reaction that is very different to if you don't decide? If you don't decide, if you're uncertain, your mind is not going to support you in pushing you in a certain direction, because that's not what you've told it you want. It's not going to do that. So it's this first step, this first decision that changes absolutely everything. So let me just illustrate this. This was so clear, and that's why I used the post that I used earlier. Very, very, very simple. So my abuse situation, let's make it clear. My husband did not physically abuse me. I wasn't sexually abused. My abuse all came from school, from being bullied. I tell my story. The effect of it was devastating. I was suicidal, even at the age of 45. It was so traumatic. I had no self-confidence, no self-esteem. And at the time of the incident that I posted about earlier, it was when I had decided, I was a couple of years into where I had decided enough is enough. I am not going to live like this anymore. I am going to do whatever it takes to get over this trauma, over this self-loathing, over this self-doubt and hatred. And I am going to get past it. And that was such a significant step, because once again, you can see how once I made that decision, everything about me, my mind was totally focused on supporting me in that decision and reaching that goal. But what happened in that situation that I posted about earlier, where I was faced with, we were on holiday in New Zealand and we were faced with rock climbing and abseiling. And I had I had a terrible fear of heights. So I'm in this situation and I've got my boys, I think they were about 18, 17, 18. There's me, there's my husband, and they're looking at this. And of course they're saying, Mum, it's okay, you don't have to. I wanted to join in. I didn't want to be the mum that said, no, yeah, David, I know I understand what you're saying. I'll just tell this story and I'll come back to you. David's just asked, what if it's hard to get over? It is hard to get over. Depending on what you've been through, it is hard to get over. What I went through, I mean, I don't ever want to reduce anyone's experience, but I always think that my experience was nothing like sexual abuse. It wasn't domestic abuse. It was bullying at school. And I think the reason it was so hard for me to get over was because it mostly happened between the ages of 8 and 11. And then I spent the next kind of 30 odd years instilling this story. It became my blueprint, as it does. My blueprint was that I was this person, and I ingrained it into my own mind, which of course is what we do with our neuroprocessing, and that became my main thought wave. So that was very hard for me to get over. But yeah, I'll talk some more about that. But I'll just finish this story. So what happened was I had my boys and my husband, so no one was pushing me. No one was pushing me to say, Mum, you need to do this, get over this, don't be so silly. And I'm faced with this 50-meter wall of rock that we had to climb up and abseil down. And I had decided that I was not going to be this scared person who didn't believe in myself anymore. And what happened was everything went into overdrive to support me in the decision that I was going to climb the wall. Because I was determined, this had become my new blueprint, and my mind was used to supporting my decisions that were moving me towards my goal, of being a person who was no longer afraid, a person who was strong, a person who had courage, a person who believed in herself. And that is why those first steps, those decisions are so important. Because if I had said, no, I'm not going to do the wall, I absolutely can't do it, no one would have pushed me. No one, because everyone knew I was scared. They just would have said, that's okay, Mum, you don't have to, it doesn't matter. But I pushed myself, and my mind was constantly reminding me of where I wanted to get to. Now imagine if I had made that decision. So I get to the top of the rock, you can see it in the picture. I'm really scared. It was a terrifying experience. I was really scared, but I did it. So there I am. I'm at the top of this 50-meter rock face. Number one, I've conquered something. I've grown as a person. I've realized I can do something. I can overcome a fear. I'm starting to manage my anxiety, and I've grown. I've done something way outside my comfort zone. Imagine if I'd stayed down the bottom and just said, no, I'm not going to do this. Completely different scenario. I would have kept myself small, kept myself safe, which is, of course, is what our fear processing is all about in our mind, to keep us safe. But I wouldn't have achieved. I wouldn't have grown. So that first step, you can either make, you can decide decide to do something that supports the goal. And my goal was all about healing and growth. Okay. And the other thing I want to say about deciding as well is about deciding against labels. I absolutely hate labels. I hate it when people say, I've been diagnosed with this, I've been diagnosed with that. You know, I've had a few years where I've had complex post-traumatic stress, but I've never seen myself in that way. I've just seen myself as someone who needs to overcome these things. I recently came across someone who had been diagnosed with this is the danger of labels. I guess to a degree they can help us because we understand what might be wrong with us. But I was out the other day and a mother was arguing with a boy who was probably about 10 about doing up his shoelaces. And he said he couldn't because of his ADHD. And that's just labels gone crazy. So I'm going to ask you as well to decide not to be who your label says you are. You know, your label doesn't define you. Quite often these things are wrong. There's an awful lot of information out there at the moment about how people are being diagnosed with bipolar where they actually have post-traumatic stress. And I can understand that because it would be very, very similar. The disassociation and the inability to do certain things and to be consistent. So yeah, just be careful about labels. David, yeah, what if it's hard to get over? I think what you have to accept, now I don't know, David, what your situation is. I think the best thing you can do is to tell yourself or just accept, you know, there is no abuse that is easy to get over. As a therapist, I don't tell my clients it's going to be easy. I do tell them with my methodology, it's easier. It is easier because we're dealing directly with the subconscious, and the subconscious is where all the programming is. And I think the best thing you can do, David, is just accept that this is going to be a difficult journey, but that there are things you can do to make it easier. So just know it's going to be hard, because what you don't want to do is be disappointed in 2 weeks' time when you haven't got a complete resolution. So I think the best thing you can do is tell yourself, okay, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to know that at the end of it, it will be worth it. I'm going to push through. I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to understand as much as I can. And just draw all the positives out of it, and just make the decision then. Make the decision and get your mind focused on those things that are going to help you and going to support you, really. That's what you can do. So I think that's, yeah, and of course you can work with a therapist like me. I use RTT, rapid transformation therapy. I use hypnosis. The thing is, getting over any trauma, that yes, the trauma is a problem, but the event is a problem, but the event is in the past. The real presenting problem is how it has left you feeling about yourself. That's what we work on. In the work that I do, I don't need to go back to the details of the event, not unless the client really wants to. All of my work focuses on you and how you feel today about you. Because if you just take that very simple sentence and analyze that, you will realize that all of the issues you have today are based on how you feel about yourself. Could be about how you feel about other people, but that's related to you as well. And it all comes down to the main pillars that I cover. It comes down to not believing that you are enough. So not thinking that you can take control, not thinking that you are safe. It also comes down to the fact that your mind is working in a certain way, and your amygdala, your fear center, when you're going through a traumatic experience, especially if it's sustained over a period of time. I was talking about this yesterday. It literally gets hijacked. And all of your anxiety, your fear, your uncertainty, all of your triggers, your responses are because your amygdala is literally on constant high alert. And its job is, all your amygdala does is look at a situation and say, is that dangerous? Should I fear that? Is that dangerous? Should I fear that? And it does it 24/7. And what happens in a post-trauma situation, let's just say you've been in an emotionally abusive situation, you could actually sit down at a table and have a fear reaction. You feel completely anxious sitting at the table because your amygdala reminds you, it might be a different circumstance, situation, environment, but what you are reminded that last time you sat at a table, or even if it was a few months ago or some time ago, someone shouted at you and it was awful. You got called all these names, or someone hit you, or something bad happened. And that fear response, because your amygdala is all out of it, it's literally been hijacked. It's on high alert. It's like your amygdala, your fear center is on steroids. And what we have to do, we have to go through processes to rebalance the way your mind is working, and to calm the amygdala, and to get more of a balance with your higher thinking, which is more towards the front of your brain, which balances your amygdala. Normally your higher thinking kind of shuts your amygdala up and tells it, no, don't be silly, no, there's nothing to fear here. But when the amygdala is running wild like that, is when everything is scary. And you don't know this, you can't reason. You're not every time, if you feel scared and anxious 24/7, you are not consciously looking at every object, every situation, everything that happens to you, and trying to work out, why do I feel so anxious? Now, when you know, it certainly helps. But what you also have to do, you have to know how to rebalance this, which is certain, obviously there's certain exercises and techniques and things that we go through. But the most important thing we do is change how you feel about you. Because what you also don't know is that your subconscious, as well as your amygdala running in overdrive like that, your subconscious is acting as if you are still the person that you were when you got traumatized. So let's say this is what happens in child abuse situations. This is why adults, I have adults in tears saying to me, I feel so stupid because I feel scared all the time and I don't even know why. And it's, number one, your amygdala's gone crazy and is telling you to fear things all the time. But number two, you are actually stuck in who you were when that situation was going on. So you imagine, if you were a child, you had no control, you had no power, you had no voice, you had no support, no control, no options, and all of that adds up to this terrifying situation of being completely stuck. And that is the thought process that is running through you, as well as your amygdala going crazy. Because if that wasn't happening, you'd be able to reason with it. You'd be able to say, oh no, actually there's nothing to fear here, because I'm not 8 years old anymore. I can make decisions, I can leave, I can shout, I can fight, I can go to the police, I'm living in my own home. But that is not what you do, because your subconscious is running your thought patterns, and your subconscious thinks you're stuck. Do you know, one of the really, really common things with the therapy that I do in hypnosis, I do exercises with people, and they'll be in a situation and they suddenly realize, because it's all about your thoughts and your perceptions, and suddenly we'll be talking about, we saying to them, how do you feel? And what are you thinking? What's going on? And that doesn't have to be the physical things that are going on. This is all about thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. And they will suddenly say, oh my God, I am stuck in the pattern as if I am 8 years old. And when clients get this realization, it's absolute gold, because they know then that they can see exactly what is going on. They can see the root. And the beauty is, when we're dealing with the subconscious, your mind has created this. Okay, so your mind has created this perception and carried this forward. Whatever your mind creates in that way, we can uncreate. And we just go through and we do some upgrading exercises and things, very, very powerful, and we remove that so that your mind completely understands that you are not that person anymore. We tell your mind who you are, we completely empower you, we give you control, and the beauty of it is then when you realize that you have the control, when these situations start to come up and your amygdala is throwing fear at you all the time, you know that as an adult, you can start to reason with it. And this is where we start to get the healing. So I didn't actually intend to say any of that, but I love these lives. I love it when people just come in and ask questions, because there's no point me talking about something that isn't relevant to what you want. So what we got here is an answer to a question. What if something's hard to get over is what we were talking about. We went on to the likely reasons why it's hard to get over, because this comes up all the time for me. This is what I'm dealing with. It's very rare that it isn't that. It is always about how you perceive yourself, how you feel. And that is always what we are dealing with. That is the root of everything. So I love the questions. So thank you for that. And yeah, I hope that was of interest to you. So please leave me more questions and comments. And if you have any issues like that you need to resolve, and you do want to find out what it would be like to work with me, how I can help you change these very dramatic, traumatic situations in your life, yeah, just get in touch. Otherwise, keep watching. Thanks for watching. I love doing them. I love it when people say that what I've shared has really, really helped them, because that's what I'm here for.